if there's a location change or if there's a scheduling issue. That's how I use ChatGPT as well. When can I fit in interviewee A and B if this is their schedules?
Welcome to this new podcast from Quite Frankly Productions. It's not the end of the world, everyday use cases for AI. My name is Bobby, and we are hoping to have conversations with people from across industries as we try to understand how they are using these tools in their day-to-day. The aim here is to try and cut through the hype and the fear, because there's been a lot of that in the media, and that makes a lot of sense. I'm not qualified to speak to whether any of that will come to fruition, but what I do know is right now, there's a lot of people trying to figure out how to use these tools to improve their lives or to improve their workflows. So that's what this podcast is all about. We hope you enjoy it. Our first interview is with Katie Hansen. She's our production coordinator here in New York City. Enjoy. So, Katie Hansen, thank you for joining us on the podcast. For our listeners, you are our production coordinator. You spent 10 years in Australia working in video production before you came back to New York. And Australia's loss is our gain because you are the best production coordinator I've ever worked with by quite some way. But this podcast is less about your career and more about how you're using LLMs and AI, etc.
Sure. First of all, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be the first guest. Yeah, so AI has definitely been a part of my workflow since I was working in Australia, sort of towards the end of my time there. I attended a conference with some of my colleagues, and it was basically, in the beginning, it was just learning how to prompt AI to get what you want out of it and how to use it as a tool. Fast forward, now I'm in New York. This is probably 2 years later. Of course, we've seen AI progress in many, many ways. And now it's a part of my daily workflow. So using it in more depth.
Okay. Well, so tell me about how people are using it in work.
In the production space, I'm responsible for organizing crew, call sheets, production schedules. So it's sort of like an assistant, right? Like I'm using it to maybe support or back or help what I may have already been thinking, or maybe thoughts that have been dormant that haven't come to the surface yet. I feel like it's extremely helpful.
Right. Does it like speed up your work, or is it not about speeding up? Is it about giving you new ideas or being more accurate? It doesn't sound to me like that is something that is necessarily speeding you up. So what is the kind of the utility?
Yeah, so actually, I would say it's speeding me up. So for something that may have taken me a few hours back in my role in Australia, as when I was producing a million different projects, maybe simultaneously, it was taking me so much time to create these call sheets. I was using Canva. They were really well branded, but it took me, I would sometimes allocate half a day or a full day just to create a call sheet. And whilst they looked amazing, like obviously that was a lot of time and I needed to be focusing on other things. Whereas now with AI, essentially get all the information that I would want to put into the call sheet, plug it into AI, and something that was taking me half a day to a day is now taking me maybe an hour or two to finesse and perfect, maybe even less. But taking that information, branding it, and the quality is still the same.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So yeah.
Can you give me the workflow on that? Let's imagine you are training the next Katie Hansen to be, using the same workflows that you use. How do you produce a call sheet using ChatGPT or whatever AI tool you're using?
Sure. So first of all, collecting all the information that you need. So address, call times, crew, maybe it's also the interviewees' names, the B-roll, and making that as clear as possible, plugging it into ChatGPT and asking it to format it in the exact way that I'd like it. And then branding it and playing with it as well. If there's some sort of problem solving that needs to be happen, if two interviewees are only available at a certain time, or we need to swap camera lenses, like also using ChatGPT as a bit of like that assistant as well. Like, how could I work around this problem and going from there? So
Are you saying that sometimes you put in a schedule or whatever and it calls out that, oh, hey, Katie, you need to think about, repositioning the interview and you need time for that? Or are you saying that you have recognized that there's a location change and that's going to be tricky, but you can't quite get your head around it, so ChatGPT helps you? Which one of those are you saying?
yeah, I think more so if there's a location change or if there's a scheduling issue, you can kind of use it like, when you're talking to a friend and you have to talk out loud about something to figure it out. That's how I use ChatGPT as well. Like, I'm dealing with this issue. Can you give me some suggestions? Or, more specific, can you give me 3 suggestions as to how to problem solve? When can I fit in interviewee A and B if this is their schedules? And it's a really great tool to not have to talk it out with your coworkers anymore sometimes, but just be able to feed it into AI. So I think that's been really helpful. I mean, you could have a conversation with it all day, right?
I completely agree. Yeah, I think that using it as like a sounding board to
Mm,
bounce your ideas off is, I found that really useful. And it sounds like, just to kind of rephrase your answer in my own words, just so the kind of the listener can digest it. It sounds like what you're doing is you're taking all of the information from your email or whatever about the shoot, from your notes from the call, brain dumping it, your chatbot, and then it formats that, and telling it, hey, I need a call sheet. And then it formats that clearly as a call sheet with all of the details that you need on it. And then I presume you then copy and paste that into whether it's Google Doc or some other word generating kind of platform, and then you just finesse it from there.
correct.
Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly it. Brand it, quite frankly, Productions.
Yeah.
And then also, check it as well because you just want to make sure all the details are right, which, yeah.
Yeah, and it looks great. I mean, when I came back from paternity, you'd started doing this method, and I was sort of taken aback. I was like, "Oh, these call sheets are great." And you mentioned, yeah, I'm doing them in ChatGPT, which is nice. I mean, it makes me think a little bit about, because we went through, just before ChatGPT came out, we went through a whole like branding process with our call sheets and trying to make them look nice, and it was a bit of a kind of a rigmarole. And then, of course, ChatGPT comes along, and I started my career doing call sheets as well. I was a production coordinator, and it was a really arduous kind of process of just grinding it, trying to make sure it was formatted correctly, really trying to make sure you dot the I's, cross the T's. And then I realized, obviously, like later on in my career when this came out and you're thinking about use cases, and I was playing around with using it for call sheets as well, and it generates them so quickly and efficiently, and also points out things that you might not have thought of, or information that you weren't necessarily putting on your call sheet because you're trying to spin a lot of plates when you're planning these shoots. And it kind of made me think a little bit about how airports had to adjust to when Uber, Lyft, and other ride sharing services became available, and you, during that weird period where they were still in the old world, and you'd come out and you could either get a cab, like traditional cab, or try and find your ride share. And like, it was mayhem and it was crazy, and trying to find the right ride share was really hard. But now the airports have adapted, so there's actual ride share zones, and it feels a little bit like this is just one example of how our line of work and your job is adjusting to this new technology. A call sheet used to be that you would have to like use a special software or a program and put all the information in and format it correctly and make it look really nice. But why waste hours doing that when you could just dump the information into ChatGPT and then check it and make sure that it's right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's been so helpful. And just to be able to focus on other things as well. Like, it's just freed up that much more time in my role to focus on, yeah, I could go on, but it just allows you to have more time.
Yeah, and that's invaluable. All right, so tell me about, you mentioned you're using it outside of work as well. Help me understand those use cases.
Yeah, so recently I was planning a trip for my husband and I. We were going to the UK and then to Portugal, and we're a bit time poor. We only have 4 nights in the UK and Portugal. Something that I would have been Googling for hours and hours and hours a couple of years ago, or even, 6 months ago. Now I'm just going to ChatGPT, flying to Manchester. Then we want to fly somewhere in Portugal that has a direct flight, is easy to get to from the airport, great weather through September, has good surf, good accommodation, good food. Give me the 10 best places that I can go to. And that's how we landed on where we're going in Portugal next week because it checked all those boxes. There's a few other places as well that now I'm going to save for future reference. But, it's just so nice to be able to put in everything you want out of something like a vacation and be able to get all this information that I would have never even known about this place that we're going to visit. And now that I've done some more research on it, thanks to ChatGPT, I'm really looking forward to it.
It's cool. Have you done that before? Have you used it for that before?
Not so much for like a Euro trip, but maybe within New York City, like looking for dumplings in Chinatown, close to this subway, something like that. So,
Okay.
yeah, that's a little bit more like domestic, but to be able to use that for travel on an international level is really fascinating.
Okay. Well, I'd be remiss not to ask what the number one dumpling place it recommended was.
That's a great question. I'm sorry to say I can't remember.
Okay. Well, then maybe that raises the question then. How effective are you worried that like you're going to show up there and everything that it said is not actually accurate?
No, I think there is, there's a level of trust to have these options given to you, but then there's also responsibility to dive deeper and do your own, deeper research on these places.
Yeah. But you're also speaking to, I guess, having an understanding of how these tools work. So when you say deep dive further, are you then like going to another website, a more traditional space to look into whether what it's saying is true, or are you like, having a longer conversation with it? What do you mean by that?
I think both, actually. That's a good question. So I think diving deeper on the ChatGPT thread that I'm on, but then also going back to Google and just reference checking as well, is checking the images, making sure that, it is a safe place or the reviews are equivalent. And to be honest, it definitely is aligned with what ChatGPT was feeding me. So I think that's just something that I'm interested to see maybe in the future if I still do that or if I have more trust in AI.
Yeah, it's a weird space, isn't it? Because I find myself in the same boat of kind of like the more it's right, the more you just end up trusting it. And then you just end up kind of becoming maybe complacent about checking its answers or whatever. And then you know that as soon as you stop checking it, that's when there's going to be a huge clanger that drops. So like you just ruins your whole life. So it's a weird, I'm afraid of that constantly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I suppose being diligent is the answer. But at some point, I guess it'll become so good that we can just trust it, or maybe
Yeah.
not. Who knows?
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. All right, so we're kind of talking about what doesn't work. Are there any kind of things you find frustrating that are like weird or annoying? Anything that you try and use it for that just isn't good for? Yeah, I tell you what, I'll give you one to kind of lead you up to it, because you
Mm.
and I were working on a script trying to use transcripts from interviews and trying to have the bot pull out certain quotes. And I've had like mixed results with that. Sometimes it's amazing. And when it's amazing, wow, is it amazing? And I've put in maybe like 8 different transcripts, and then it's pulled out the time codes, and it's like put strike throughs where we've got a soundbite and it's cut out the middle bit and I can see exactly what it's done, and it's absolutely fabulous. But I've also had the experience where it completely makes up, it hallucinates things that the person I interviewed hasn't said, which is just, you end up just wasting your time trying to do it. Or more recently, I guess they've updated it. I was trying this with ChatGPT and Google Gemini, and put in like, I forget, it was like 8 transcripts in a Word
Yeah.
document, and it just got, we got the spinning wheel of death. It just wouldn't give us any answers about those transcripts. What our workaround ended up being was the actual script that you had worked on. We were able to share that with the bot and ask it if there were any adjustments it might make. And it became a really great sounding board for just having new ideas and new ways of looking at a script. I think that speaks to the need to have it as part of the workflow, but not try and have it as the entire workflow, and figuring out where in your workflow to start using the bot. But as I say, really frustrating when it starts just making up stuff, and you could give it very clear instructions as well. And sometimes with the thinking models, it will follow those instructions, and sometimes at some point in the conversation, it just starts going off the rails, and then you're just left thinking, did I just waste my time here?
Yeah.
So that's one that I've got that's related to what you do. What sort of frustrations have you kind of come up
Yeah.
against?
Well, if I could sort of piggyback off what you were just saying, that was a really unique case. I feel like we had 8 interviewees to fit into a 90-second piece with endless amounts of themes to pull that out. Like, so it kind of is understandable that ChatGPT wasn't able to come up with the personalized script that you and I came up with prior, and how the story should flow. So that was actually really interesting to see because I'm glad that we took the route of figuring it out ourselves and then using it as a sounding board to see what would happen later on. So that was really, yeah, that was really interesting. Frustrating things, maybe not so much frustrating, but I'm not sure, if or when AI, how it's going to completely tap into my brain when I'm speaking with clients who I have a close relationship with and I still want to come off as sounding like myself. So, yeah, I think, keeping that personalized touch when you're responding to clients and not solely relying on ChatGPT, like they might be able ChatGPT, they might be able to give you, some solid structure and check your grammar, and polish an email up. But I think it's always going to be important to me to keep that personalized note,
Right.
so
So
yeah.
you're meaning more like it's like a personal watch out.
Mm,
It's not that it can't mimic your style. You're saying you don't ever want it to be able to mimic your style because you just philosophically think it's important to have that personal sort of rapport with a client and for them to know that these words that are coming to them are directly from
mm.
Katie.
Yeah, yeah, that's how I feel for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's completely legit. I mean, I think trying to understand how to maintain like human to human connections in this age of automation is yeah, a really important riddle to solve. All right, let's move on to your like quick tips, the part of the podcast where we go through quick tips. Tip number one. So, what would your general tip be for a beginner?
Sure. And I'm wondering if you're gonna agree with this or not, but my tip number 1 for someone who's just starting out using AI is, and this is what I learned, at one of the first conferences that I went to when I was learning about AI and how to use it, is to prompt it with as much possible information and be very specific with what you want in the outcome. You know, for someone like my parents who don't use AI, and the conversation has come up with my brothers and my parents on how we're using it, but yeah, it's just letting them know that they can essentially speak to it like it's an assistant, but give it as much information as possible. And you don't have to stop there. You can continue diving deeper and giving it some more detailed information for the outcome that you want. So I think it's all about feeding AI what you really, really want to get out of it. That's my first tip.
All right, so let me synthesize that. So, what you're saying is don't be afraid of giving it a ton of information. Be very specific about what you want out of it. Keep the conversation going and treat it like it's an assistant. And I'm assuming what you mean by that is treat it like it's a human assistant. So keep, if it doesn't give you what it wants, give it the feedback as you would to a human. Yeah, I think that's a great tip because I've noticed that too. It's like when people first start using it, I notice what they do is they go, I don't know, give me a call sheet for a shoot on Wednesday. And then it does something weird. And they go, oh, well,
Yeah.
that doesn't work. And you're like, no, no,
Yeah, exactly.
like just tell it what wasn't good about its answer and then see if it does a better job. And then I'd
Yeah.
also add to that as well, like, and if it goes off the rails, just start a new chat and go again.
Yeah. Yeah, no, exactly.
All right, that's tip number one. Okay, tip number two. So a specific, like more medium advanced tip that works well for you.
So recently, from my side of things, we've had a couple of jobs where we've been able to save on costs by using 11 Labs as a VO option in AI, and that has just been like incredible. I could read the VO, plug it into an 11 Labs, and again get gender, tone, all these different outputs to then plug into a video. So I think that's a little more advanced than something like ChatGPT, and I'm very interested to see how that grows in the coming years as well.
Okay. Yeah. Let me ask you a question though. I'm going to put you on the spot. Imagine I'm a voiceover artist, and I'm hearing you now say that you're using 11 Labs to do the VOs. What would you say about that? How do you respond? Because that sounds to me like, this podcast isn't really focusing on like job loss and these more like existential worries that we have around this software. But I am curious just to know what your hot take is
Sure.
about that.
Um, I think every industry is changing because of AI, and I think it's something that we need to become more comfortable with naturally. Like I mentioned earlier with that, personal note in my emails to clients when using ChatGPT, I think it is really similar to the voiceover as well. Because when you're hiring a media trained voiceover actor, who are going to be able to have, depending on the budget and the project, you might have a couple hours with them to run through the script over and over and get the exact tone that you want. When you have the budget for it, when you're looking for that quality, yes, I think it's important to use a human, voiceover actor. That's great. But for jobs that have a really low budget, yeah, these platforms allow us to work within smaller budgets. But it's not to say that taking away from actual talent is where I see the future. I think they're also very important as well when it comes to production.
Yeah, I guess I kind of feel similarly. I hope there's room for both. A
Mm,
professional voiceover artist can't be beaten, but equally, usually where we've been using these VOs, either the job was never going to have an actual voiceover on it anyway, and we've just been able to apply one using 11 Labs, or we're able to just put a really great scratch track down, and then the voiceover artist comes and does the actual real thing. So it helps us
yeah.
sometimes get work that we wouldn't have ordinarily got because the client is able to kind of get a greater picture of what this could look like. So, I don't want to oversell it and pretend like it might not be impacting those people that are VO artists, because, it could well be, but we're finding that it's a bit of a more complicated and nuanced picture than that.
No, I totally agree with that. And you make a really good point. Using 11 Labs as like a scratch track has definitely been a part of our workflow. So that, if we do hire voiceover artists at the end, we have one go with them and they can sort of hear how the timing's been working for us to edit. So that's another great point. Yeah, thanks for bringing that up.
All right. So one surprising, something like a fun or unexpected use case, something that you just like using it for that, I don't know, maybe there's one moment where you're like, oh, I'm going to see what it's like. I'll give you an example for me. So I used it for like a family tree. There was my
Oh,
family tree
nice.
from the Croatian part of my family was in the back of an old book. So I took a photo of it, put it in the ChatGPT, and got it to like analyze my family tree, tell me what the etymology of various names was, which also then hinted at various like ethnic demography that is in my gene pool, which was
Hmm.
super interesting. And then it went on to like, would you like me to come up with a poetic timeline of your family and how they migrated across the European continent? Which I said yes, I would. That sounds great, and it was really fun. So that was just a really interesting, and I shared that with all of my family on WhatsApp, and they all, found it really cool. So,
Hmm.
yeah, there's a kind of surprising or unexpected use case that I've used it for. So, tell me about you.
That's probably far more fascinating than anything I could come up with. um, I have dreams of writing a series one day or a book based on past experiences. And something that I found really helpful from ChatGPT is, well, also being able to like just speak to it rather than type. So if I'm just out on a walk with my dog or something and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm thinking about this for the series. And it's easier to just open up the app, speak to it while you're thinking of it. It'll be in your history, so you could always go back. But more specifically, what I'm using it for that is, I have all these stories that I want to tell, but how do I structure them? And again, using ChatGPT as a soundboard to give me a few ideas of how that can be structured to be engaging and how to tell the timeline of these stories is something that I think will be really useful for me in the future. I've only really started using that in the past 6 months or so, but because I write a lot, I just want to figure out how I can structure that for something in the future that I dream of creating, really.
Oh, okay. All right, let me push back on you for a second there, though. But what if I'm like, what do you say to the person that's like, yeah, but now you're just using an AI to write your stories, so it's not original. It's not coming from you. It's just like AI slop. Um,
Hmm.
what do you say to that?
I would say I'm not using AI to write my stories. I'm more so using AI to help me structure where I put those stories, of which have been written by me, handwritten by me in a journal. So it's more getting the structure of how I can put them together rather than just something I would have, it's more so having a few more, it's just allowing me to like open up my brain and be able to visualize how things can be structured and where I can place these stories essentially.
Yeah. It sounds to me like you use it as like a thinking partner a lot. Like you're always bouncing ideas off it, whether it's for a call sheet or how you're structuring a shoot or emailing a client, or you've written this script and now you want to get some feedback and you come into a kind of a hurdle in your mind and you just need to help it kind of get over that hurdle and keep on moving. Or in your personal life, you're writing and you're using it to, you've already written these ideas or you already have these ideas in mind, but you just need something to help you kind of keep it moving and order your thoughts. Is that kind of,
100%.
yeah, that's
Yeah, you've
cool.
nailed it.
That's
Hmm.
really cool. I mean, I would love to talk to you more about advanced voice mode, but I feel like we're sort of coming to the end of our time. But yeah, I mean, I do want to. I'm going to talk to you about advanced voice mode. We can always just edit it out later if we don't want to. If we don't want to use it. So yeah, you're using like the little sky icon comes up, and you're like, and it's like, oh hey, Katie, what can I do for you
Um,
today?
well, no, I guess so. Sorry, I'm looking at the app now. More just like the microphone option to speak into.
You're like dictating your
Yeah,
thoughts into the text box.
yeah,
Oh, cool. That's interesting. It's a very, I mean, it's like all these different kind of ways of using this technology, right?
yeah,
So you're
yeah.
dictating your thoughts into the text box. I thought you were using like the advanced voice mode. Have you tried that one?
I know. I don't think I have,
Oh,
but
it might be because you just got the paid subscription through work, right? You
yeah,
should give that a go at some point. So it's
yeah.
where there's like next to the microphone, there's another button that looks
Okay,
like a waveform. I guess it's black with kind of these little white dots that are meant to represent a waveform. And you press that, and then this like little kind of cloudy sky icon appears in the middle.
cool.
And then when you start talking to it, it talks back to you. And
Okay,
and you can like choose its voice or whatever. And like one of them sounds a bit like Scarlett Johansson or whatever, but like it's really, really natural. It sounds kind of eerily natural. It's a bit weird, but it's a really great way to like, I found it really useful for lots of different use cases, like bouncing ideas off it, talking to it about just like my feelings about something can be quite
yeah.
nice. Or even like you can also turn on your video camera and then like show it things. So
Mm,
I'm like at a grill in an Airbnb and I don't know how to turn it on, and I can turn my video camera on, point it at the thing with advanced voice mode on, and it'll tell me like, oh, you just need to turn that dial, press that button. Yeah. So may you take that tip away with you and see if you can find a use case for it.
thank you. And I am just cracking up because imagine what we're going to be talking about in 20 years from now. You and I looking back on this podcast of how we're using it. And
Yeah.
in 20 years, we're going to be like, oh my gosh.
I said this podcast would not get into the existential crisis area, but yeah, no, I know what you mean. I don't know if
Yeah.
it's terrifying or exciting, Katie. But
Yeah.
with that, thanks for joining me,
Thank
and
you for having me.
yeah, been a pleasure. Thank you for listening to the first episode of It's Not the End of the World, Everyday Use Cases for AI. We'll see you next time, unless it really is the end of the world, in which case you probably won't be worrying about this podcast. See you then.